Good afternoon. I would like to remind everyone that today's activities will be broadcast on the web TV of the Chamber of Deputies. In addition, online participation is allowed based on the modalities established by the Rules Committee. Today's agenda includes the fact-finding activities on the projection of Italy and European countries in the Indo-Pacific. We will be hearing the Vice President of the Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam, Mr. Son, and the Ambassador of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam, Mr. Hung. On behalf of the members of the committee, I would like to thank our guests for being here. So thank you to Mr. Son and to Ambassador Hung, who are here together with Ms. Oang, advisor to the Embassy of Vietnam, as well as Mrs. Ha and Mr. Trung, the First and Third Secretary of the Embassy, respectively. Now, considering the limited time that we have available, I would go ahead and leave the floor to Mr. Son, the Vice President of the Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam. The floor is yours.
Please, Ambassador. Yes.
Honorable President, Honorable Deputy of the Chamber, it is my great privilege to be here today. Allow me, first of all, to thank Mr. President and colleague for the invitation and excellent arrangement for this session. I'm very happy to have Mr. Nguyen Hung Son, Deputy Director General of Diplomatic Academy of Vietnam, prominent speaker on Vietnamese foreign policy, especially in the strategic areas of Indo-Pacific. He's also well known internationally in the circle of diplomats and researchers on the issues of South China Sea. Thank you. Before we start with the main presentation of Mr. Nguyen Hung Son, I'm deeply grateful for this opportunity to speak on the improved political economic relation between Vietnam and Italy. Vietnam and Italy established a relation in 1973. And over the past 50 years, the world undergone many big changes. But the relationship between our two countries have developed positively, comprehensively, and developed in depth in own fields with many significant achievements, especially since we upgrade our relation to the strategic partnership in 2013. And after the COVID pandemic, with great effort from both sides, an exciting atmosphere and major improvement have been felt in our relation. We are very happy to observe that the relationship with Italy is becoming more and more profound and substantive, with increasing closeness and political trust. This session today is also a good illustration of how we can discuss strategic issues together to bring about more added value to our relationship. Vietnam's consistent policy always attaches importance to developing and strengthening the strategic partnership, traditional friendship, and cooperation with Italy. This relationship always highly valued by both sides and will continue to be strengthened and to the following factors. First, there's a strong and profound traditional friendship between Vietnam and Italy. This is an invaluable asset of our two countries that continue to be consolidated and strengthened. During the war, generations of Italians took to the street to support Vietnam's resistance war for national independence and unity. And today, that precious sentiment keeps continuing. Just as when Italy support for 2.8 million doses of vaccine for Vietnam during the COVID, I was very moved when attending a photo exhibition in Genova last November and witnessed strong, warm sentiment of the worker at the port of Genova as it was 50 years ago, when the Australian ship carried medicine, necessary, and even blood from Italian to the Vietnamese people, which we are always grateful. Second, the two-country political relations excellent, regularly enforced and nurtured by our leaders from both sides. Developing strongly and political trust is increasing through many exchanges of visits, including the most high level, especially the recent state visit of the President of Vietnam to Italy last year on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations, and also meeting with the President of the Senate and President of the Chamber of Deputies. Recently, our Prime Minister several times gave instruction to the Ministry to strengthen and increase relations with Italy. Third, the strategic partnership between Vietnam and Italy once again emphasized and further strengthened with a joint statement issued on the state visit last year, creating framework and conditions for new step and stronger cooperation between our two countries in the time to come. Fourth, Italy and Vietnam share many similarities and closeness, not only in geometry, mindset, value, family, community, cuisine, culture, but also in economic structure with many small and medium-sized enterprises. The two country economies are similar and complementary, so they can bring added value when they join venture and cooperation. Italian business are successful when investing and doing business in Vietnam. Fifth, in a world still full of instability, conflict, war, both Vietnam and Italy share common value and fundamental principles, such as respect for international law and order, the rule of law, respect for independence, sovereignty and territorial integrity, support multilateralism, promote dialogue, peace, cooperation and development between countries, working together to deal with common global challenges such as climate change, epidemic, transnational crime. It can be reaffirmed that our two countries' promotion of increasingly strong, effective cooperation not only show respect and priority in both sides' policy toward each other, but also come from the interests of each other people for peace, cooperation, and development of the region and the world. Economic trade investment are the most prominent areas of cooperation in the two country relationship. Vietnam is Italy's largest trading partner in ASEAN, and Italy is Vietnam's third largest EU partner. In the context of global difficulty and declining trade, two-way trade between Vietnam and Italy last year was $6.1 billion, slightly less compared to 2022, but one of the lowest reduction in the EU. Italian investment in Vietnam continue to increase with new investment, including investment in expanding Piaggio factory in Vietnam. A new wave of Italian companies is showing their keen interest in doing business and investment in Vietnam. The Italian government and business community attach importance to and identify Vietnam as one of the markets on the list of focus countries, taking into account that Vietnam is among 40 largest economies in the world, a market of more than 100 million people, young population, rapid growing middle class, and also a gateway for Italian business to access to ASEAN market and other larger markets through network of 16 FTA, of which Vietnam is a member, including the important EV FTA. In this regard, the Italian Parliament has contributed importantly to enhance business environment when it ratified the IVPA last year, of which we are very thankful. Italy is a member of G7, the third largest economy in the EU, and has many leading strengths in technology, machinery, agriculture industry, and one of the need for industrialization and modernization of Vietnam. In particular, a lot of activity of Vietnam-Italia last year in many regions and provinces of Italy contributed to strengthening the friendship, promote understanding, and especially opening up economic opportunity. Many economic forums, seminar, roundtable was organized, has brought about important results. For example, we are in discussion with Lombardia for a MOU, and this will hopefully open up opportunity for cooperation with other regions and provinces as well. We are also studying a direct flight between our two countries to increase tourism and business. Our two countries still have a lot of potential and room for cooperation. Regarding the cooperation in multilateral forum, on the basis of good cooperation, Vietnam and Italy need to further promote cooperation within the ASEAN-EU framework, and Italy has become a development partner of ASEAN and recently welcomed a Deputy Secretary General of ASEAN to visit. We can observe a welcome Italy interest in the Indo-Pacific region in general, and Italy interest in the developing relation with ASEAN in particular. On this occasion, we would like to thank once again the Italian Parliament for the ratification of the EVIPA, and thank warm welcome of all delegations from Vietnam. Based on strong foundation of our excellent friendship and strategic partnership, and the bright prospect of our cooperation. We hope that the Parliament will continue to prioritize relations with Vietnam and encourage the government to push for even stronger relations in connection with Vietnam. We are looking forward to working closely with you for the benefit of our people. I'm here ready to answer the question, but because I'm Rome and you are welcome to meet me, so I suggest that the question will be given to Mr. Nguyen Hung Son, who will be here only for today. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Son, and we will hear from our ambassador now.
Honorable Vice President, Excellency Ambassador, first of all, thank you very much for your kind introduction. And it's a great privilege for me to be in this hall today to present my views about the Indo-Pacific and why it matters to Italy. So we wouldn't be here in this room had we not recognized the importance of the Indo-Pacific, right? You all have heard about the shift of global gravity towards the Indo-Pacific, how the Indo-Pacific has become more and more importantly, both politically, also economically. But let me give you my 10 favorite statistics to tell the importance of the Indo-Pacific. First, the Indo-Pacific is the most populous region. Second, the Indo-Pacific carries about half of the world's surface, land surface. It has 3 of the world's largest economies. It has 4 largest world democracies. It has 5 major nuclear powers. It produces about 60% of world GDPs. It has 7 of the world's strongest armies. It has 80% of the global concentration of lithium, nickel, which is critical for the new economies. It has 9 of the largest ocean port or seaport of the world, and also 10 of the world's smallest countries. So those 10 pieces of statistics hopefully tells you about the importance of the Indo-Pacific. But I think we all are aware that the Indo-Pacific is also important because it is where the world is going to be shaped, or it is where the future rules or future world order is going to originate from. It's where the testing of the integrity of the rules-based order is going to be the most critical. The vitality of the UN system is under test, such as the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, but also it is where the economic order of the future is going to be set about the critical infrastructure, about the global supply chains such as semiconductor, about trading rules, about industrial standards. Many of those are likely to be originated from the future or the current Indo-Pacific. So it is important, but what are the challenges that we are facing? We are facing a lot of challenges in the Indo-Pacific. Most critically, there are competing visions of how the global order should be set. There are views about the global order, the future global order, that is rather different from what we are quite used to, or rather different from the current so-called international rules-based order. There are competing ideas about how to achieve security. There are very big differences on approaches to security. One that is based on deterrence, one that is based on community securities. There are critical hotspots in the Indo-Pacific, name it, the South China Sea, the Taiwan Strait, the DPRK, and the nuclear race, and the border tensions between very major powers. There has been critical violations of international law in the Indo-Pacific, one that sets bad examples for the rest of the world, sometimes under operations categorized as gray zones. There are growing economic competition and securitization of economic activities also originating from the Indo-Pacific. There are also competing framework or mechanisms on cooperations. So you can call it, there are different alliances in the making that originates from the Indo-Pacific. So those are posing critical challenges, not just for the countries in the Indo-Pacific, but with ramifications to the rest of the world. But there are also opportunities in the Indo-Pacific. We see there are greater desire for stability in the Indo-Pacific, simply because the world cannot afford another region plunging into conflict and disruptions. Because of that, we have seen the resumptions of strategic communication and dialogues between the US and China, most notably the summit in San Francisco, but also most recently the phone calls between the two countries, which indicated that there are efforts from the major powers to maintain communications and trying to maintain stability. There are a lot of goodwills that many partners in and outside of the region is bringing into the Indo-Pacific. And this is evidenced in the fact that there are more countries issuing their Indo-Pacific strategies. We have counted about 20 countries or so who have indicated and devoted resources to the Indo-Pacific through very concrete strategies or plan of actions or visions or whatever you call it. But they all have set very specific policies towards the Indo-Pacific. This goodwill, when combined, can create plenty of synergies for cooperation and for the benefits of the global community. We have ASEAN as a very flexible organization that is ready to serve the interest of all for both countries in the region and also partners outside the region, but who wishes to cooperate with the region. ASEAN is an open, inclusive, transparent organization that sees itself as the center of the Indo-Pacific. And it is indeed at the center of the Indo-Pacific. If you open up the map, and you will find out that Southeast Asia and ASEAN in particular is very critically geographically centered, but also diplomatically centered at the Indo-Pacific effort to promote cooperation. So that shows that there are challenges, but also plenty of opportunities for countries when engaging with the Indo-Pacific. So let me briefly talk about why Vietnam. Vietnam is obviously at the center of the Indo-Pacific. We are a very active, one of the largest ASEAN member states. We are right at the heart of the Indo-Pacific and in the South China Sea. The South China Sea is a body of water that connects the Indo and the Pacific, and therefore is of critical importance to the geopolitics of the Indo-Pacific. Vietnam is an open economy of 100 million population, one that is well connected to all other major economies of the world, a gateway to ASEAN and also a gateway to East Asia, because we are, whatever produced in Vietnam have a preferential tariff to China, to Japan, to Korea, to India, and to the CPTPP region, which is to the largest economic region of the world, but also to the European Union as well. So we are very well connected. We are transforming ourselves into a green economy, increasingly digitalized. We have the critical minerals to transform ourselves into a green economy. We have the second largest concentrations of rare earth minerals in Vietnam, and we have the clean energy to produce and process it. And also, most critically important, we have the high quality human resources to help engine and push ourselves toward that new economy prosperity. So Vietnam has plenty to offer to the international community, has plenty to offer to our European partners and to Italy as a strategic partner of Vietnam. My final point, what is our expectations of Italy's role in the Indo-Pacific? We look at the European Union's member states, and Italy included, as a very important pole in the multipolar configuration that we would like to construct in the Indo-Pacific. We hope to have more EU engagements and presence in the region, and that means Italy is included, to shape the region's discourse and to shape the future rules-based order and platform of engagements in the Indo-Pacific. There are competing narratives, however, about European Union's and Italy's possible engagements in the region. There are some in the region see it like myself, that multipolarity requires EU engagements in the region, requires countries like Italy engagements in the region. And those who see it that way see that the more the merrier. the more countries' engagement contributes to creating alternative, helping with the balance, and is a force for good. But also there are others who see that engagements of outside powers or outside countries as a force for divisions and complications, and might provoke other countries unnecessarily. So there are two competing narratives out there about EU possible engagements in the Indo-Pacific. So how to promote the positive narrative, how to promote Italy's engagements with the region that is seen as a force for good and not a force for division or provocation. So I think that EU and Italy's engagements needs to be comprehensive. It needs to be based on the rule of law. It needs to be founded on multilateralism, and it has to carry a lot of pragmatism. What do I mean by that? Comprehensive, so you must not engage with the country in just one area, for example, in defense or naval diplomacy. That's not enough. We would like the EU engagements in economy, in the rule of law, in political and diplomacy, especially in the economic, but also in other social fields. We would like the EU and Italy's engagements in promoting the rule of law, like the UN Conventions on the Law of the Sea, strengthening and supporting the UN Charter, strengthening the UN system. We would like the EU engagements and Italy's engagement to support multilateralism, support ASEAN, support EU and ASEAN engagements, and support the multilateral foundations of the UN system. We hope that there are engagements along that line. So let me conclude with some very concrete proposal or recommendations. First, parliamentary dialogues. I think the parliaments in all of our countries plays a very crucial role in promoting transparency, promoting awareness, and EU and Italy's engagements with Southeast Asia and with Vietnam parliaments through parliaments to parliamentary dialogues is going to be very critical in promoting the peoples-to-peoples connection and promoting awareness about each of our countries and each of our regions' opportunities and challenges. Secondly, we would like Italy to cooperate with Vietnam in order to promote capacity or build capacity for not just Vietnam, but also for other countries in the region. Capacity to support the rules-based order, capacity to implement international law, capacity to, for example, promote law enforcement on the ocean domain, capacity to deal with unmanned vehicles. For example, Italy's and European countries' experience in dealing with the Red Sea can very well apply to the South China Sea in dealing with possible disruptive forces created by unmanned vehicles, for example. We would like to propose that Italy support ASEAN and Vietnam in promoting technological cooperation, given Italy's strength in this area. Educational cooperation is also very important that we call for greater Italy's engagements and cooperation. And last but not least, we thought that Vietnam has some strength in food security. And whereas Italy, we understand that would like to support Africa's food security, a trilateral form of cooperation between Italy, Southeast Asia, Vietnam in particular, with African countries can provide plenty of goodwill also in Southeast Asia, but also in Africa, where food security is very critical. Southeast Asia and Vietnam in particular have some good experiences, good lessons, and good capacity to share. And these are just some of the ideas that I have to present to you in order to kick off our discussion. So looking forward to your questions. Thank you very much.
Grazie mille davvero.
Thank you so very much, Ambassador Hung, for your presentation, your words. I imagine that we have our colleagues with some questions or observations who would like to open up the floor for our debate. Mr. Onori and Ms. Boldrini. Thank you, Chair, and thank you and welcome to the Vice President of the Diplomatic Academy and, of course, to the Ambassador. Thank you for your words. You mentioned some very interesting topics, especially for the types of activities that we carry out in our Foreign Affairs Committee. I will pick up on some of the things that you said, which is, for example, the extraction of raw materials, their the refining and use of these products. And we are dealing with this issue, specifically in this committee, when dealing with the geopolitical difficulties in acquiring these materials. So Vietnam has a very central role in these terms. You mentioned it's the second country after China with the highest concentration of critical materials. And so I would like to ask you what type of activities are being carried out. In particular, memorandums of understanding are being signed with other countries, for example, with the United States. And what kind of strategy is Vietnam implementing to understand how Europe can better understand the utility, the usefulness of these memorandums? The other issue on critical minerals is the point on sustainability, which is something that Italy and Vietnam are already collaborating on. For example, JPT with Italian investments in Vietnam. So what kind of strategies are being considered in terms of the negative consequences on climate, considering that this is an economic sector that will be increasingly important in the future? You also mentioned possible cooperation, broader cooperation, and spoke of the rule of law. So I would like to know what kind of projects are being considered in these terms. Are any of the indicators used by the international community to monitor and assess the state of democracy and rule of law of a country? Is this something that Vietnam is considering? Thank you. We will now hear from Ms. Boldrini. Thank you, Chair, and I would like to welcome the delegation who is here with us and who are stimulating this reflection on such an important geographic area, which is the Indo-Pacific. I was delighted to hear that there is interest in a parliamentary dialogue, and therefore I would like to share an observation on the relation between democracy and economy. I was recently in Cambodia and Laos. I was very close to Vietnam, and it is clear as day that there is a very significant development, economic development, in particular in the cities, in more urban areas, whereas in more suburban, rural areas, there are some problems. For example, universal aid service, schooling is lacking. And so my question to you would be, what is the challenge to make sure that the well-being and economic development is distributed equally among the population, and if it reflects a higher standard of living for the entire population, the entire country? I was also wondering if economic development shouldn't also be considered in terms of democracy, in democratic terms. For example, discussion, debate among parties, having many parties, multi-party democracy, freedom of expression, multimedia. It also means having different visions, points of view, playing on the same field. So rule of law in a context such as that of Vietnam is being driven by an economic development, but this also has to go hand in hand with reforms to improve the quality of life of all citizens in urban and rural areas, but also so that it can comply with international standards on human rights, on the protection of human rights, the protection of the rights of minorities, for example, and the general challenge of democracy. In such an important country, I think that this type of reflection should be considered. And it would be very important for us, in view of launching a parliamentary dialogue, to help us understand if we will be discussing and we will have a dialogue with a country that will have a single party, or if this is something that is not the case, and therefore the parliamentary dialogue will be more limited in some terms. It will be more formal and conceptual. So thank you for your response. Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the Ambassador. Thank you to the Vice President of the Diplomatic Academy. Thank you for your presentations. They were very comprehensive. Once again, thank you for being here. It's very important to have you here in person, because it demonstrates that there is a will to cooperate with many countries, including Italy. Italy is going through a new phase, especially with our new government that is focusing on the identity of a country, and identity of a country for us also means made in Italy. So I would like to know, based on the cooperation and the capabilities of the different Italian sectors, what is the approach of Vietnam with made in Italy products? There will also be an event in the next, very shortly, on Made in Italy. I would also reaffirm that there is the desire to have maximum openness and dialogue with our government, and considering everything that is happening in the Middle East in the past couple of months, how this is affecting the situation, and also the status quo that is being challenged in Taiwan. I would also like to hear your thoughts on that. So thank you again for being here. Thank you. We have Mr. Marocco who would like Ms. Marocco, who has a question. Thank you, Chair, and once again, thank you to the delegation here with us this afternoon, the Vice President and the Ambassador, the entire delegation. A very quick question. There is greater cooperation with allies, the United States and China, which demonstrates will to diversify its foreign policy in a global geopolitical context that is quite unstable, we could say. So I would like to know, what is the margin of movement? What is the scope of your country in a dialogue with the United States and with China? Thank you. Thank you. And I think we have Mr. Billy who would like to add something. Thank you, Chair. I would also like to thank the Vice President of the Diplomatic Academy, and I would like to thank Ambassador Hung. I will be focusing on one of the points that my colleague mentioned, which is the freedom of navigation, which is clearly important for your country from a geographic point of view, but also geopolitical and social point of view. So I was wondering, considering the recent events and the issues in Yemen with the Houthi and their impact on the economy, on the import and export of goods from your area to Europe in general. They're having a very important impact. I was wondering, how can Italy and the European Union help you and work together? How can we work together to support you and support freedom of navigation in your geographic area? I would like to hear your thoughts on that. At this point, we can hear the Vice President of the Diplomatic Academy, Mr. Son, for his reply to the many questions that we had.
Much for your wonderful questions. I'll try to address them to the max that I can. Now, raw materials. I think this is a very critical area of importance to the new economies. Vietnam is fortunate to have a huge resource of rare earth mineral, but also other very critical minerals like nickel. The nickel in Vietnam is highly concentrated and is of relatively good quality. And the most important critical factor is that it is located very near to the source of hydropower, which is a clean source of power, very important to produce battery in high quality that meets international environmental standards of demanding market like that of the European Union. Therefore, critical cooperations with dialogue with partners have been very important elements of cooperation that Vietnam recently tried to promote with the United States, with Japan, with Australia, South Korea, but also with China, which is also a very important producer of rare earth materials. So that is an area that we are new but very determined to work on. And if the European Union, Italy is interested, I think we are very open for cooperation. Sustainability, I think Vietnam has committed to turn itself into a net zero carbon emitter by 2050, and we take it very seriously. And the government now has a strategy in order to transform itself, to transform its economy from a brown economy into a green economy, and we take our commitment very seriously. But we can't achieve the objectives alone. We need the cooperations from partners, and we understand Italy is also part of the just transition partnership with Vietnam, and I think Vietnam is taking the cooperation with partners very seriously to achieve that objectives. The rule of law, I was talking about the rule of law in the broader context, in the context of the rules-based international order. Vietnam sees that the rules-based international order that is founded on the UN Charter, on the role of international law very critically. And I think Vietnam's have times and again indicated that it will continue to support international law, continue to support the UN and its role in interpreting and enforcing international law. And this has been a very critical priority in Vietnam foreign policy. Therefore, we have been very active at the UN, for example. Vietnam has twice been a non-permanent member of the Security Council in order to support and show our support to the UN system and to the support of international law. Parliamentary dialogues, I think this was an idea originated from my thoughts about the role of the parliament. The parliament in Vietnam has become increasingly active. They are also conducting sessions like this that you are having today, with also live reporting on television. My foreign minister very recently was also asked to report live on televisions, and he had to answer a number of questions, and that session went on for nearly 4 hours. So that shows how active our parliament has become, and we thought that by promoting Italy and Vietnam parliamentary line of cooperation is going to strengthen transparency, and also promote the voices of the people in our system and increase awareness. Let me move on to the question from your Honourable on the Made in Italy. I think Italy is a very well-known brand in Vietnam. In Vietnam, many Vietnamese love the Made in Italy brand. But there are competitors, and they are becoming very good. And Italy needs also to maintain its reputation and its presence in order to maintain the well-established reputations that you have made. So we hope that you will be more present in our region, more presence in Vietnam to support the Made in Italy brand. We also hope that there will be new variations of Made in Italy. For example, Made in Vietnam by Italian. We hope that can be promoted as well. Or Made in Italy by Vietnamese. That could be a possibility as well. So we hope that that could be the joint projects that we'll be working towards the future. The Taiwan issue, I think this is a very complicated issue. I mentioned in my presentation that the Taiwan Strait is one of the hotspots that there are a lot of concern about. At the moment, I think the Taiwan Strait, the South China Sea have not turned into an open zone of conflict. And we consider that to be very fortunate to our region. But we cannot underestimate the risk of such hot spots and the conflicts that have erupted in Europe, in the Middle East, tell us and remind us that we cannot take peace and stability for granted. We have to constantly evaluate the risk, constantly remind ourselves about what might cause countries to mistrust and might lead countries into open confrontation in order to avoid them. So I think we are approaching Taiwan Strait, the South China Sea, the DPRK issue with that mindset, full aware of the possibility that these hot zones might become really, really hot. And we are also seeking international cooperation in order to avoid such a catastrophic eventuation. The question on Vietnam's margin of movement in our country's cooperations with China and the US, we are fully aware that these countries are competing with one another. They are competing for influence in Southeast Asia. They want to promote cooperations with Southeast Asia, but at the same time, they want to limit others' cooperations with Southeast Asia. And that is just a fact that we do not have any illusion that we can change that fact. So we try our best to stay neutral. We try our best to stay autonomous. Strategic autonomy could be a key word here. But also we are pragmatic in promoting cooperation. So we go as far as we can, mindful that this might send a wrong signal to the other side. But we do so in a dynamic manner, in a way that is going to preserve our agency and autonomy. So I hope that that relatively vague answer indicated the kind of complexity that we are facing, but also the kind of strategy that we are approaching on the issue. Freedom of navigation. I think the questions of freedom of navigation is never more relevant to ask right now after we've seen what happened in the Red Sea. So we thought that now that we realize that what happened in the Red Sea have a direct bearing on Vietnam's export to European Union. The cost of container shipping has nearly doubled after what has happened in the Red Sea. So we thought that what happened in the South China Sea might have, if it ever happened, could have severe consequences to trade exports elsewhere as well. It's going to immediately impact the cost of European Union exports to America, for example, or to the countries in Southeast Asia, for example. So it is in our mutual interest to cooperate in order to prevent and maintain freedom of navigations worldwide. And so experiences from the Red Sea, from the Black Sea, from other seas in Europe could be well shared with countries in the Indo-Pacific, so as we can learn and draw lessons from. One of the things that we thought that could be an area of cooperation between Vietnam or Southeast Asia with European countries is how to handle non-state actors as a player in the maritime domain, how to handle new factors such as unmanned vehicles, such as drones, which is playing a increasingly critical part, but also how to adapt technological advancements for the benefits of maritime order and maritime stability. I think the European Union has plenty of capacity and expertise in that manner, and we are having growing interest in that manner. So that could be an area of fertile cooperation.
Ringrazio davvero per...
Thank you so much for your reply. Thank you also for being here once again this afternoon. And yes, the Italian Parliament is really focusing on these issues. We will continue to cooperate. As you have said, we share this desire to cooperate and to strengthen our cooperation even more. We have shared interest in strengthening these relations also in an economic sense, and in order to do this, we must defend the rules-based international order. We must defend freedom of navigation, and we will continue to do this together. With the naval diplomatic mission, Italy visited Vietnam in addition to other countries, but this mission will not be the only presence in the area. There will be later on this year, the aircraft carrier Cavour, the Italian aircraft carrier, will carry out training with Japan. And so the entire geographic region of the South China Sea, we are well aware of the situation, and of course we want peace to be maintained in the region, and we all want to grow together. Thank you once again for your time, and we apologize for starting our hearing late, but let's keep working together.